So we have kind of changed up the format for this a little bit because we want to, of course, introduce Salesforce to you, but we want to also be able to kind of talk to you about how to utilize it with what it is that we've given you so far for marketing purposes. So we have distributed some lists to you for small, focused on small and large businesses in your area. And we're going to start out with Betsy kind of giving you some background about how to utilize those, and then we'll move into how to utilize it with, in conjunction with, of course, Salesforce. So we're going to start off keeping you muted for now, and then as we go on, we're going to introduce questions. And Michael and Betsy and I are sitting in right now, and we'll have some time for question and answer because I know a lot of different things have come up over the course of the last few weeks, and we want to go from there.
So here I am. Good morning, everyone. This is Betsy. And what I did in New Mexico was actually to obtain a list of leads just the same way you did. And after studying it for a while, I started to come up with a process that made sense to find some leads and therefore some prospects, and the ultimate goal is to get customers. So the first thing I did is I took the whole list and I sorted it by sales and revenue. And I did that in descending order so that I would have at the top of my list the companies that had the highest annual revenue. The next thing I did was to just start at the top and look at the business description and start to count or identify. The first one was a car dealer, the second one was construction, the third was home health care, fourth was medical labs, fifth was oil and gas, and sixth was law offices, etc. I want to also let you know that what I am saying I will write in a note to you when we are off the phone. In any case, as I went down this list of sorted names, I saw companies that were not candidates and realized that appliance stores, TV repair, restaurants, and newspapers were not our target audience at all. And I started developing two lists, the ones that I really thought were great and the ones that definitely would not be candidates for a G3 audit. The next thing I did after I went through the list, I made a note of which companies had lots of email addresses, because if they had a lot, that would give me the option of trying to reach one of 10 people, one of 15 people, and it also helped me to understand that even though my list had 750 people in it, if some companies actually had 12 or 20 contacts, I really didn't have 750 names at all, which was fine because I'll never be able to process that many. Again, once I went through it, I made some highlighted notes electronically, and I said, what is the comfort zone for me? What are the businesses that I know best because of my history in the business world? And the first one was law offices. In my past life, I wrote accounting packages for law offices because that was the area of their businesses that were most out of control. And a lot of law offices had purchased software packages that were to be used in those law offices, but the law offices were still running inefficiently, and that's where I came in. The second comfort zone for me was engineering and professional services, because I knew, again, from my experience, how those companies can grow their revenue and how they can increase their earnings as well. And then the third comfort zone for me was home health care, because we have spent so much time here in Santa Fe with a hypothetical company, Acme Home Care, that has products and services. And so in our development of our initial case study, we all had a lot of discussion here about how a home health care business can run effectively. The third thing that I did, which you might not have to do, is to actually group these prospects or these leads by cities. And if I found that there were a lot of law offices in Albuquerque, New Mexico, it gave me the opportunity to figure out how will I meet them all. And it turns out that in Albuquerque, and I suspect in some of your large cities, there is a service that all law offices go to for running their businesses efficiently. So my plan, which I have not implemented yet, is to go to this advisory company that is providing consulting already for law offices and introduce what I could do in the way of a value enhancement audit. The fourth area, thing or process that I did with my list was to find companies that made annual revenue in our target area but were somewhere out of my comfort zone. And it turned out that here in the state of New Mexico, petroleum processing, oil and gas are companies that do have annual revenues between 20 and 40 million dollars a year. So they were good prospects or leads for me, but it was outside my comfort zone. So I went into my virtual Rolodex and I said, do I know a person who knows this area very well? And it turns out there's a colleague from my past who is a consultant in the oil and gas industry and happens to live in Houston. So I made a note that when I am ready to actually start making appointments and trying to make presentations to some businesses that are outside my comfort zone, I'm going to utilize my colleague in Houston and have her prep me for this lead. And the next thing I did, again, I'm accumulating leads and saying, who do I want to talk to? And a first question I said was, of this list, which companies would use or be forced to use a large company like Accenture? Which ones do I think, because of the nature of their business, how they're privately held, would think, if I'm going to use an outside service, I better use the biggest one? And I just sort of categorized that because that would dictate the message I would give in my initial request for a meeting. The next thing I have done is to look down these leads and go on to their websites and figure out who likes to be in the spotlight. And the way I would do that is I would go to the sites and then I would look up an area of their site where they would have press releases. If they have press releases, they like to be in the limelight. And therefore, they would be more likely to deal with the outside world, in other words, deal with me as a G3 auditor. Then the next thing I did with, again, this leads was to look at the 14 areas of the business and think to myself, of these 14 areas, where might I find a match between my audit skills and the lead's need? And when I did that, I actually started going out and making practice calls. And I made 3 big mistakes. The first mistake was assuming that the business would, in fact, be willing to share their financials as well as details and some metrics about the company. And the first sales call I made, the person who was a colleague, a person I had known socially, said, "You've got to be kidding. You think I'm going to show you my financials?" And I got stuck. So very quickly thereafter, I ended the meeting and I said, let's go for lunch. The second one I went to, again, somebody I knew in business who was the right target, and was a small manufacturer, said, "What's the big deal? We have our financials looked at all the time. What could you possibly bring to the table?" And again, I made a mistake. In my initial call presentation, to not explain that I wasn't just interested in their financials, I was interested in their business health. And I was interested in helping them grow their revenue and grow their earnings. And rather than actually set the stage, I just talked about how I'm going to go and do it. And when I said I wanted 3 to 4 years of financials, they didn't mind about the confidentiality at all, because I had sort of positioned my presence there in such a way that I made it clear that that wasn't going to be my issue at all. But they kept on saying at least 3 times, "We look at our financials all the time. What could you possibly do to help?" Okay, well, that sales call ended very quickly. And then the third time I did it with another company, they said to me, "You know, we already use outside consultants. Why should we use you? I know you're pretty smart. I know you've been doing business consulting for a while, but we're already using outside consultants." And by that time, having been beaten up by enough people, I said, "You know, that's great. Maybe I could work with those consultants. Could you tell me who they are?" I ended the call. I got the name, and I'm following up that way because it is my intention to become a colleague of their outside consultants and have them bring me in rather than in any way threaten another person that they already feel comfortable with. Another thing I did in going through the leads was to look at the many names on the database I was given and figure out whether there was gender balance in the contacts. It has always been my belief that it is easier to deal with a female in a business to get them to be your inside champion. They're not necessarily the decision maker, but they in general understand that collaborative work, using outsiders, getting help, sharing can yield a better result than doing it all in a vacuum and not letting anybody help. There was a question that Andrea asked me. How did you decide who to reject in the type of business? And there was a general category. Any business that was people-based and probably had high turnover was a type of business that I wanted to not deal with at all. And here in New Mexico, there were 5 categories that I would just very nicely cross off. One was retail stores, second were newspapers, third were anything to do with food, food preparation, restaurants. The fourth category were car dealerships, and the fifth category were janitorial. And if I made a mistake crossing them off my list of leads, well, I'll have to deal with it. But then there was another whole issue of good leads, organizations that billed between $26 and $48 million a year that I knew were long sales cycles. And those were hospitals, government, and education. So again, my experience says it takes 18 months to close business, but it's great business. And so I put those into another column saying the hospital, education, government, I will get to them. And in many cases, I will get to them through their boards, their trustees. In education, get to know who's on a trustee of the organization. In a hospital, who's on the board, which doctors. And in government, try to understand who's actually making the decisions. So there you go.
Okay, so following Betsy, now that we've given you an idea of how to use those leads, I'm going to basically walk through how to basically use your project management tool, Salesforce, which all of you should have access to. So I'm going to go step by step. It should only take a short time for us to get to the point where because we're going to basically go through how to put those leads into Salesforce. And if you haven't interacted with it, which I believe a lot of you have not, we're just going to go through that quickly. I would suggest right now, if you can split screen this sort of intro, if you go to growth3.com, right on our home page is where you log in to get to Salesforce. So I'm logging in. Here are my credentials. And so I don't know if all of you are going to get there that fast, but we're just going to go briefly through how we use this. Starting with calendar events. If you set some tasks for yourself, basically, throughout the day, this will help sync up your calendar with what it is that you plan to do, whether they're opportunities, accounts that you're working on, leads that you're working on. And basically, this is a general place where you can start basically keeping track of your activity. So that's the first screen and under the home screen. Again, if you'd like to request a meeting with somebody else, this is part of that as well. And then we're not going to go through this. I'd like all of you to kind of get familiar with this. I'm just going to give you the basics right now. So let's get to leads. So now Betsy has gone through basically how it is that we are going to identify who our potential leads are. Now we're going to put them into Salesforce to start managing these leads and set some goals for ourselves. So in here is, once I have gone through the list and I've seen that I really like some of these people and I really want to, get in contact with them, or I've already identified them as somebody that I know I want to pursue, we can start inputting their data into these various areas. I'm just going to put in a test, and basically you can talk about what your lead status is with them. Have you contacted them? Are they basically going through that process? And you'd save that lead. So the great thing about once you have inputted a lead into the system, you can convert it to an account. So you've contacted them, you know their status with you, that they're interested. All right, we're going to turn this into an account, and we're going to say that this is a possible VEA account. And we've already gone through this process, and we're going to call this the next step, basically get the meeting. If I could spell. And we're going to set a date and a deadline for ourselves on these things. And we can convert this. And we've said that this is in progress and this is a high priority for us. And we've converted this account, this lead, into an actual account. So now we're actively working with this account, and we basically know that we have identified them. We're getting into that deeper level of research where we're starting to actually understand what it is that they're doing. So you'll also find this, this lead in the accounts as well. So for instance, we just looked at these recent contacts, and you can track basically how it is that you've gone through it. You can basically attach any notes about what it is that you've met upon, files about their company, and what it is that they're up to. So if we can start the process of basically getting some of these leads into Salesforce and allowing you to manage this, we can go the next level with identifying these opportunities and basically transposing those opportunities into active work. And so we're not going to get into the project management aspect right now. We just want to get to the point where you're actually utilizing the leads that we've sent to you and are able to translate that into active project work before you're actually getting down into the in the field. So that said, we have Michael here to kind of continue this. We've got about 8 minutes left, and I'll be moderating the remainder of the meeting. And should we talk about?
Yes. Hi. I've talked to most of you on the phone, and it's good to have you here, and especially to have you silent for just a moment. but no, you'll get your chance to ask questions. I did want to give you just a one-sentence status on what's going on in the company. David has really heard what a lot of you said, that we needed to be thinking about the smaller business targets and have a much simpler, basic audit beginning to the process, service product as an intro to the process of working with a company, and that's what he's focusing all of his attention on right now. Well, 90%. The other 10% is on brokers, and we're coming up with a strategy. We don't have brokers in every territory, obviously. For some of you, we do, and we're going to start telling you who those are. And for those where we don't have a broker lined up as an exclusive, we're going to give you a suggested list of who you can contact if you don't already have some contacts, so that you can go ahead and help a small business, whether it's with growth or with a sale. So I wanted to just talk a little bit about marketing very quickly. I did promise all of you that we would send 3 emails from the company to those prospects on lists that we sent. We did not send the second and third as quickly as I wanted, because as a couple of you experienced, we had a couple of little scary instances where our domain, Growth3, was labeled as spam. We tracked that problem down. It's not related to this marketing that we're doing. It had to do with one specific company that put us on their list, and then they've taken us off. So we're going to pick up the marketing again, those emails. And the nature of the emails is, as I think I've told you, going to shift to more news and useful information and tips about how to grow, rather than attempting a hard sell, call me now, because you should, but here's proof that we know what we're talking about, is what we're going to be offering. The other thing, I want to give another shout out to Tanya, I think, who had the subject line that worked best. I'm now going through a more formal process of testing subject lines. And so you'll still be able to choose your own, but I'll be able to give you some guidance, very statistically based guidance on what's a good subject line. But I'll give you those letters in the next week. We also want to let you know what else we're doing in the way of marketing. At this point, we're doing much more search engine optimization, which is the process of getting our website known and coming up high on search results when somebody's looking for assistance in growth strategies, and also on LinkedIn, which I still think is our #1 best place to connect with people who are likely to be our prospects. So you'll see that I'm active in about 10 different groups, and I'll give you the names of those groups. There's small business groups, entrepreneurs groups, as well as consultant groups. And I urge you to take some time every week to join one of those groups and see what people are talking about and find ways to contribute. And that's the best way for people to come find you. And, of course, to link up to our page, as many of you have now done. So that's all I'm going to say now. I think we can open it to questions.
All right, so I'm going to unmute everyone, but if you would like to, actually I'm not going to unmute everybody. I'm just, if you have a question, I'm going to the chat box to let you speak. So if you have a question, first just raise your hand in the chat box, and then we'll go from there.
It looks like there are already a couple of questions. The first one is for Betsy. Betsy, I think it's the first one.
Yeah, this is from Sarah.
How are you defining a lead?
And Sarah, if you have anything in addition to that, people had muted you.
Okay, the lead, as I am defining it, is somebody who meets a criteria for me to try to meet. I'm making my own decisions that I don't want to go out to car dealers or newspaper people, but I do want to go out to medical labs and legal services. So if I feel these people have enough annual revenue, have lots of email contacts for me, and are in a industry sector that I'm comfortable with, then I call them a lead.
Does that help?
This is Sarah. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Well, I guess I had always defined a lead differently. To me, a lead was someone who had expressed interest in and had called us and was not a cold call person, but somebody who had actually contacted us. Will we be able to ever get real leads from the work that you're doing, do you think?
Actual people that have contacted us looking for it, I would call that more than a lead. That's a hot lead.
To me, what Betsy,
the odds
Betsy
are
had
that you're not
called
going to get a lot of those early on because our website isn't known yet as broadly as we're planning to make it. And that's not our primary focus in our marketing. We want to support you in your local efforts, and we want to create the branding impression and create positive feelings about our expertise. And certainly we will forward you any leads that we get that come in for your territory. But that's not going to be our primary job at this point. But certainly we'll send you any that we have. Lorenzo has a question about, he wants to place an ad in the Crane's business paper in Detroit. Do we have an ad I can use, or can I make my own? The answer is that we'd prefer to give you ours. If you have dimensions, I'll make sure to send you that. We're going to have a library of different sizes. So let me know. Just you can send me an email and tell me the size that you're looking at, and we'll make sure you have one.
Okay.
Does that answer your question there, Lorenzo?
Yes, that's fine. Thanks.
Okay. Next is Ellen.
Michael, are you sending letters to the lists we provided to you, or just the LexisNexis list? Yes. I love answering or questions. Oh, we'll do both, Ellen. I haven't sent them to your list yet. Tell me when. I had a couple of people say, hold on until I've looked at these. But certainly.
Does that answer your question? Okay, great.
Yes, thanks.
Okay, anybody else, any other questions for now that we can answer? We're at 11 a.m. right now. We said it was going to be brief, and there's no other questions.
I have one question. Oh, here's one more question. Two more questions. Is data entered into Salesforce available to view by G3?
Albert, I'm going to unmute you. Can you define what you mean by G3?
By anybody at G3. I mean, can you access Salesforce for all the agents and consultants looking at the data that we're entering?
No, that data is yours. It's proprietary for you. These are your leads. This is your personal portal, hence the reason it's password protected. Those leads are for your organizational purposes. Although we are actually, able to have this access to that database from the corporate headquarters, that data is yours. So all we are is from our standpoint, is able to track just progress or general just activity on Salesforce. But though that information is yours, and it is personal.
Well, just for the record, I mean, I'm not concerned that you would see it or not see it. As a matter of fact, I think it's a good idea that, if possible, that you can look at it to see progress and to see how we're doing and maybe even help us.
Right, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, Ted.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just to repeat that last point that Al made, we are here to help. So if we do look at your Salesforce stuff, it is in order to suggest ways that we can help you. Ted wants to know if there are more details regarding the new audit. Is it software driven and what's the pricing? We don't have any more details to tell you at this point. There is a piece of software as part of it, but remember, we're talking about audits as a process, not just as a piece of software. How about press releases? Yes. Dennis, I have fallen behind on that. I apologize. We haven't found the precise names. I can't remember. Some people sent me the actual names of editors or business reporters. I want to be able to send those directly to an individual, not just to a business. I mean, just to the name of some organization. But I'll go back and look at your list, and I know some people did, and I'll make sure those are out, and I'll tell you what we're sending before we send them. Good. Thank you for reminding me.
Okay, so Ellen, we can respond to your question about the VEA online because it's technical. Okay, so Sarah, does each record need to be loaded letter by letter, or can it be loaded as a list? I'm understanding this as each of the leads that you see on the list that we've provided you, does it need to be loaded into Salesforce, or can you just upload the entire list?
That's right.
Okay, so sorry, go ahead.
Well, I'm just trying to determine if there is some technical way, even if we call the list down, using some of the techniques that Betsy suggested, if there is a way that we can upload the list to Salesforce. I mean, I can see an administrative huge amount of time here if we have to do it name by name, by letter by letter.
Certainly. We will basically identify how to make that more simple and to be able to upload a data list into Salesforce. Once you've identified those and have extracted those leads that are obviously ones that you want to input and actively act upon, we can basically give you some tips about how to do that without having to enter letter for letter with all of the details that you would like to put in there. We will give you a way to import those names without having it to be so cumbersome.
That would be great. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so if there's any final questions, anybody that wants to speak, tell a good story about their success so far, that'd be great. Otherwise, we'll wrap it up here, and we will make this available online. Ted's saying he can upload his leads into ACT, so
He assumes it's going to be the same in Salesforce, that you can do a bulk upload.
Right.
I'm sure it is.
Right. Do we have pricing according to the size of the company? Yes, we do. And of course, because that's available in your training materials guide, Chapter 5, tab number 5 from the training. Is all of the pricing information according to the various products. Of course, that was released in October, so there'll be minor changes, and of course we'll release it as the new product gets released in the upcoming launch. So from that we'll be able to answer those questions more specifically to the new product, but the VEA information is located in your training materials package in your binder.
One more thing that I'd like to ask you. Can you tell us if you've made contact with anyone, what objections you're hearing, just like as Betsy has been uncovering them in her experience? We want to be able to generate answers or ways to overcome those objections for everyone to use, and so you can anticipate them.
Does anybody have a good representation of that? I'd love to hear your comments. I'll unmute you as soon as you recognize yourself. Okay, Al, I'm gonna go. You have the floor.
I had a similar situation with a call about why do we look at financial statements all of the time. Why do we need somebody like you to look at them? And one of the things, if you look in some of the information that we have been given by G3, one of the things that you should do, and I mean study, a lot of the information on financial statements are basically driven by figures. And I think one of the retorts that I use, and it got me a session, at least it got me in to speak to somebody, was the fact that a lot of financial information is behavioral. And when you look at a lot of the behavior of numbers are not caused by financial problems. As a matter of fact, the behavior of numbers cause financial problems. And when I explained that to them, they were very eager to hear some of what else I wanted to say to them. And I was very fortunate to get a meeting with them, and I'm very close to a proposal with them.
Fantastic.
Yes, Al, I think we all agree that you hit the nail on the head there with what we consider the difference between qualitative data and quantitative data. What you just described is having hard numbers. What we do is actually make sense of those in a way that is completely different than just being able to spit out really great charts and graphs, but actually putting true assessment and recommendation attached to that by making those qualitative observations and putting that together to actually give real advice that's not just charts and graphs. So exactly that.
And one of the metaphors that I think is powerful is to say the numbers are symptoms, or the measures of symptoms. It's like taking your temperature. Okay, you have a fever. Now what caused that? You need somebody that really understands the business to dig below the surface of the numbers. Most audits, they're looking at the numbers, as you said, just to say we're feeling well or we're not feeling well, but the people that read those numbers typically aren't equipped to dig down for root causes. And that's where the insights of our member consultants and you come into play and really make it different from just a fancy calculator. The other objection that I see coming up from that Lorenzo mentioned is you're a new company. What I've been saying is, yes, we're a new company of old hands. The people that are actually working here, like yourselves, know something and have a history that is going to be brought to bear. And what's new about us is making the process of working to get this kind of help easier. What's new is our approach to giving you this help. Fixed prices, a simple master service agreement, access to a wide range of expertise beyond what any single company typically has. So I think that'll help.
And Al, you wanted to have a final comment?
Well, I see Ellen made a good point. We have a PDF that explains the difference between a VEA and a financial audit, and that's a good summary. Thanks, Ellen, for saying that. Someone here wants, I'm just teasing.
Okay, so that said, I think we are going to wrap this up. Thank you all for attending. We'll have this available online if you want to listen to it again and get some other details you may not have heard. Other than that, we encourage you to use the discussion forum for anything that comes up in this process, whether it be difficulty using Salesforce. We've heard a lot of email questions. One thing that I'd like to comment on, we are all using our @growth3.com emails from now on. So anything coming from headquarters will be directed to that email address. If you have any problems basically getting that set up, contact us at headquarters, Michael or myself, and we'll get you sorted. If you don't have access to the discussion forum, we'll also help you out with that. But that's a public forum that all of you can find some really great insights about some questions that each of you may have asked, and we've hopefully responded. And we'll go there to get to those questions, especially those that are easier explained in written form. So that said, thank you all for joining us, and we hope you have a fabulous weekend. We're expecting snow, and so hope you all enjoy it. Thanks so much.